Go ahead and read this real quick. Like, actually, somebody want to read out loud? Sure, Jay. Go ahead. Most often.
Most often in this course, ratios will be written as fractions or stated in words. Example, if there are 28 students in class and 15 of them are girls, you can write the ratio of numbers of girls to the number of students in the class as points.
So, if we want to... Now, this is what I don't like about how this printed. Girls to... And then I have to come down here to the next line. They want girls to students. They want the comparison of girls to students. Yeah, I got some people that don't have self-control. When we're working on the paper, please switch over and work on the paper. I wish I didn't have to pause the activity to get you to do what I'm asking. I'll give you time to play with the duckies, okay? How could I write... And guys, up here, I'm going to put like a little G to S just to remind myself I'm doing girls to students. So... No Kyra. Van, how many girls were there? Yeah, be careful. It's not the first number that they gave us. I got to go to that second number, so 15. Jenny, how many total? 28. Or we could write 15 over 28. All right, so the first thing that you were actually supposed to do on your Chromebook was to find the Chapter 5 math notes. So I'm going to unpause for a second, but guys, realize like I'm getting on Securely to check on what you're doing. If you haven't gone to Schoology, go to Schoology. And if you have more than 4 tabs open, you're probably going to have to close a tab because you don't need to have more than 4 tabs open. I'm sorry, now I have rubber ducky stuck in my head. I know, that's my fault. All right, so we are talking about ratios. And no, I am not talking about when someone gets ratioed. I had to learn this year, that this is now in slang. That is not what we're talking about. We're talking about ratios as in the comparison of like a part to a whole. So if you go to your Schoology and you go into Chapter 5, our Chapter 5 math notes, if you want a paper copy, just come tell me. I still have some printed from previous years. I can go make more. But like, I realize you guys are on your Chromebooks a lot, so you're probably just as likely to pull this up as you are to have your math notes with you and then get them out and use them. This is probably easier, right? Because you can always get to this. You don't have to keep track of it. But here's that problem we just had on our paper. Right? 15 girls to 28 total students. If we scroll down a little farther, gives us more help, like what we're going to see on our homework tonight. But speaking of help on our homework, did anyone notice anything new in the Chapter 5 folder that we haven't necessarily had in the other chapters? Like, I always throw some videos, especially if I click on the answer key. I am trying to put some faith and trust in you. Because, guys, if we're being honest, a year from now, I was going to try to figure out how many months, but a year from now, if you cheated your way through your homework, a year from now, am I going to be impacted by that? No, you're not my student anymore. But a year from now, if you cheated your way through your homework, will you be impacted by that? Yes. Probably. Like, maybe you cheated, but you still somehow like learned it along the way. More likely not, right? If you just go copy answers. So this is this isn't just the book answer key. This is my answer key. So occasionally there are mistakes. So watch out for that. And if you find them, let me know and you get a piece of candy. I can't really change the PDF at this point. So even if we find a mistake, I'm not going to go in and change it because this is a PDF. But for example, and I don't do the classwork, you should do that during class, right? Whatever we get to during class, that gets done then. But if you flip to the back to your practice, now, obviously don't copy this down right now, but the goal is that you do your homework, or as much as you can on your own, use homework help on whatever you need help on, And then when you think you're as done as possible, go use this to check your answers. Or, alternatively, in true confession, the only way I passed calculus in college was by looking up how to do the stuff. And essentially cheating, depending on whose definition. But the homework is just to learn how to do stuff. She didn't even really care. Like, if we would turn the homework in or whatever, it was just like, do this so you know what you're doing when it comes to the test. Of course, you can't cheat on the test. You're taking it like right there in front of a person. Like our masteries that you take here in front of me without an answer key. So if you cheat your way through your homework, it's just going to hurt you when it gets to the mastery.
So we don't have to turn in our homework anymore?
No, you do have to keep turning in your homework. You are not in college yet. But so that story to tell you sometimes, if you're totally stuck and you come check out the answer key, then you'll be able to figure out how that problem was solved. But if you can't solve the problem and you go look at the answer key, Brad and Griffin, I can 100% tell we're not paying attention. Then, if it still doesn't make sense, you gotta come talk to me. Because it doesn't make sense to you. Or ask a question like at the beginning of class or whatever. Like, you have access to be able to see, like, how do I do these? How did Mr. Hudson do these? Now, this is not the only way. There's tons of ways to do math problems. But this is one way. Tell me now, is there anyone in here that just knows you do not have the self-control, you are going to be too tempted, and you're going to cheat your way through your homework? Anyone need to admit that to me now? Because I'm going to tell you, it's really obvious when you've copied exactly what I did, and then you don't know what you're doing on the mastery. It's really obvious. So that's when we call your parents in, and we talk about cheating and plagiarism and things like that. It's not a comfortable conversation. So please do not just copy my answer key. Do your own work. Use this as a resource. Okay? I'm trusting you guys. At any moment, I can get this off of Schoology with 2 clicks. So please don't make me remove it. Like, please don't be the irresponsible one that abuses it and makes me take it down. Because I can't make it only visible to some of you. It's either up for the class or not. So please don't mess it up for everyone. All right, let's play with some duckies.
Duckies!
Don't spend too much time on slide 1. It's like, I didn't find any ducks that didn't have stars in slide 1.
I found 2.
Okay, well, so, just like, don't spend forever on there. Just click a few ducks and then move on to slide 2. But guys, I'm going to just turn on like some chill background music because I want you to actually read the slides. No.
Would you get
Read the slides and think before you answer and move on.
copyrighted if you play like instrumental like Taylor Swift?
I'm not sure, but so when I like click play here, this symbol right here down at the bottom of my screen says it's not pulling the audio from my computer. So the only audio it can hear is through the mic. Like if I unclick that, it'll whatever audio I play is in the video. But right now it's muting my computer. Makes sense. We got to do some ducky work to then talk about how ramen noodles could kill me.
What?
Not joking. But we got to do the ducky work first.
What?
We got to do the ducky work first.
The ducky works better anyway.
Because I'm not worried about the ducky. We'll get to that. Yeah, we're going to do at least that problem today. You do not have to count the ducks when you're trying to show 50% or 25%. It's approximate, right? You do not have to count the ducks.
Hannah Schaefer to the Perry office. Hannah Schaefer to the Perry office.
Mason, when you come back, we're going to take some notes. So yeah, head to the restroom, but I'll wait for you to take those notes. Remember that offer that I made with the expression mat? Where if you can hang on to it and keep track of it until like we use it in chapter 6, then I'll pay out candy for it. This is also going to be worth candy because the notes we take today are pretty darn important. So if I was you, I'd put your name on your notes page, and I would probably give it a header so you like know to keep track of it. And one of the first things we're going to talk about, like once Mason gets back, like I'm not actually going to do all this. But one of the first things we're going to talk about is 50%, like that question about which pond has more starred ducks. Which pond has more starred? So we're going to talk about how many would the 50% pond have. Sure, or you can. Oh, Link already took my markers. Yeah. So hey, by the way, because I don't think I told this class yet, my chargers are here now, in an attempt to make them easier for you to get, and also maybe put away. Because I feel like people weren't putting chargers away because it was like awkward after class to go like get around my desk and put it back in the drawer. So chargers are down here now. And there's extension cord back there, extension cord up here, extension cord over there. I'm recording, talking about how many extension cords I'm using. If you're the fire marshal, none of that was true. I'm not using extension cords. What? Yeah. What are those? What are those?
I wanna own all of these 800 duckies. All right, as much as I want to wait for Mason, I want to make sure we don't get too far behind. So take a moment to come with me and think about... Sorry, I'm yanking you all back to this screen because I don't want to pause the activity, but I want us all looking at the same thing. So we have a pond with... Well, we have two ponds, right? Anyone confident enough they want to talk about the answer that... Well, actually, we can look at what you guys did answer, right? So I'm going to anonymize real quick. So the game where 50% of ducks have stars, flipping over some ducks, there's a 2-2 ratio of ducks to star. I don't think you meant to type 2-2. Oh, well, maybe, because if it's 50%, I guess there'd be equal stars and not stars. The game where 50 duckies have stars, 50% is 40 ducks. Because there's a chance the other game might not have as many. So wait, I'm stuck on this statement right here of like, how'd you figure that out? That 50%. So let's... It's funny that you guys like raised your hands at the same time and it just kind of looked like two arms going up together. Hey, Mrs. Denies. I do not. I'm sorry. 50%. Who can remind us what percent tells us to do, Soul? By what? No. 50% would mean 50 like out of. Yeah. I knew you were just like confused at what I was asking. You should be writing this down. And another way that we often talk about 50% is like if I told you 50% of the ducks in the pond, what's really the way that we can talk about the blank ducks in the pond? What's the word that we normally use instead of 50%, Asher? Half, right? Because 50%. Man, I'm trying to talk over my music. Why am I doing this? Because I have like 18 tabs open and I don't know where my music is. Alright, we're just muting. Alright, Mason, we had to start just a tiny bit while you were out of the room, but this is all that you've missed. But I also did tell them this graph paper is going to be worth candy. If you can keep track of this and like you have this in like a week or so when I ask you about it. So Asher just told us that another way to talk about 50% is half, which we can get to by doing a division of what on top and bottom? Careful, you could divide by 2. That doesn't get us down to 1/2 though. Ooh, yeah, we would divide by 50. So now we get to our reduced fraction. And guys, this is going to be up here for a couple days probably. Everything I'm showing you, it's like this is a different percent. But with percentages, we always put them over 100. And then, assuming that the top number is not like super like odd or really weird, we normally reduce, at least by something. So here, we were able to reduce all the way down to 1/2. But if I gave you 55%, that wouldn't reduce as far. But once we reduce, we can build up to what we want. Which, funny enough, that problem up there is talking about 80 gallons. But our problem that we're talking about is talking about 80 ducks, right? So always our total is going on bottom. So if we know there's 80 ducks in the pond, that's going to go on bottom. How do we get from 2 to 80? Just shout it out. Times 40. So how many ducks will have stars in that pond? So wait, which pond is better? The 50% pond or the 50 duck stars pond? The 50 duck pond. You do not have to go back and change your answer. But if you had it wrong, I hope you now realize why you had it wrong and maybe, won't make that mistake again in the future. All right, you are released to continue on exploring your duckies.
Adventures of Duckman? I connected the ducks. Oh my. I slowly started connecting the ducks.
All right, so a couple of us, and if you're past this and confident with your answer, like I'm not going to sink you to me, but a couple of us have this incorrect, so I do want to talk about this. Yeah, that you were also out of the room when I announced chargers are here, and the little pink things. Maybe you guys will put them back, actually. 50%. What did we just say 50%? Like a nickname for 50%? Half. So I'm going to put this halfway. Now, like I told you guys, you don't have to specifically count, but a couple of you guys accidentally dropped your line like over here. 50% is assuming the ducks are spread out evenly, right? Which they look like they pretty much are. So then 25%. What's like a nickname, an easier fraction? What could we say for 25%? It's not a half. A quarter, right? On our paper. Let's go ahead and write. I'm trying to check that I'm doing everything from the morning class. So 25% would become 25 over 100. You should be writing this down. It reduces to a fourth. And then we could build it up if we want to, if we need to. How would we have gotten there? Well, guys, if you're turning the top number into 1, you're dividing by what you're starting with, right? So to turn that into 1, we got to divide by 25, which is how that happens. All right, go ahead and keep going. So I'd be like about there, probably. Yeah, that's probably about a fourth.
Share it with class.
Share it with class. Yeah, see, this is what was work. I think somebody flipped them. Like, I think somebody accidentally put them switched around.
That was me. What I thought is, I thought we were trying to make them equal for some reason.
No.
I thought we were supposed to make the amount of ducks, and like I thought we were like cutting it off.
Okay.
Trying to make the amount of ducks equal.
I'm with you now. Okay, so 20. We just talked about 25%, right? So what if we have a game with 400? Well, guys, this is why we go to the reduced fraction. If the game has 400 ducks, how do we go from 4 to 400? Times 100, which is what we do on top. And we get 100.
Oh my god. Crazy. Best thing I've ever seen in my life.
10% is one of the most useful percentages ever. Here's why. Yeah, I know, some of you are mad at me. Get over it. When you go out to eat, you are expected to, you don't have to, but you're expected to what when you pay your bill? You're expected to tip, right? How much are you supposed to tip?
10%.
No. Somebody said it over here. Say it again. You're supposed 20% is like customary here in America, right? If you have really good service, maybe a little bit more. Not so great service, maybe a little bit less, but don't be a jerk, right? Like, it's probably not their fault. The kitchen, everyone else is involved. So if you can get to 10%, what can you do with 10% to find 20%? Yeah, just double it, right? But 10%, what would its nickname be? Like that easier fraction, the reduced fraction? It's a tenth, right? So if you are asked to find 10%, it's really a tenth of something. And the easy way to do it with your bill, let's say you had a bill of like $55, right? Your dinner, whatever, $55. To find 10%, we literally just take the decimal and bump it back a spot. So 55, right? 55 decimal, right? We're going to bump the decimal back. What would 10% of 55 be? 5.5. So what would be your 20% tip? $11. It's that easy. You don't need a calculator. You don't need your cell phone. Guys, I'm telling you, this is going to happen. I hope somewhere in the world, in the future, you go, dang it, Mr. Hudson, you were right.
No.
Because you're going to be out to dinner. The bills are going to come. Someone's going to go to sign their thing, and they're going to pull out their phone and calculate their tip. It's embarrassing.
I've already seen my mom do that several times.
Well, and please don't tell your parents I'm picking on or whatever, but if they had me as their math teacher, and if they had learned the 10% technique, just move the decimal and then double. Yeah, just move the decimal and then double. Last percent I want to talk about is a nice fun one. 33%. Because we're going to see this out in the world. This would be 33 over 100, but this is one of those situations where, can I divide by 2? No. Can I divide by 3? No. Can I divide by 4? No. We can't divide both of these by anything. Cleanly. So this is where we would use the approximate. So squiggly equal sign, right? Squiggly equal sign.
What does that mean?
33%. If you had 33 out of 100, approximately what fraction of your ducks are we talking about? A third. If you get now that's not exact, but it's very, 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 very close. Because technically, if you want to know, technically, it's 33.3 repeating forever %. But if we're talking about a third of something, it's approximately 33%. Once I find your ducks, I'll let you keep going. Keep going. So wait, hold on. I think some of us are past this, but what's 10% of 800? Shout it out. 80, because we divide by 10, right? So 80 will be our 10th. Now, if this was like a tipping situation, right, then you double and you figure out your tip, but I don't think you're going to leave 160 ducks for your good service at dinner. That would be a lot of ducks. Although, like Jeep people literally leave ducks on each other's cars. I'm not a Jeep person. I used to have a Jeep. But yeah, it's a weird Jeep thing that they like ducks are a thing they do. Let's talk about how ramen noodles could kill me. I'm not joking. Ramen noodles could kill me. So if I know I talk way too much, but if you listened, where was I on Tuesday? Heart doctor, right? I have a scar from here to here. It's pretty long. Back in 2020, I had heart surgery, right? So every year I gotta go get checked on. And one of the things my heart doctor tells me to like limit because it's not good for your heart. Well, I mean, so there's a couple things up here that aren't great for your heart. Saturated fat is the not so good kind of fat. Trans fats are okay. Like it depends because there's different types, but saturated fats are the ones where we know, like, yeah, that's not really good for you. We should probably limit how much of that we get. So there are no trans fats in ramen, but sodium. Anyone know what sodium like essentially is? Salt, right? Salt is essentially straight up sodium. So now notice what ramen did. This column that you look at first, per serving. What's a serving? Half. Who eats half? Anyone in here only eat half when you eat ramen noodles?
Because I have to
Jay,
share.
you're a monster.
I have to
Okay.
share it with my sister. I cook for her.
I get that's nice of you.
I
You
just-
know,
Not nice of me.
I just eat half the noodles raw.
Jake's like, sure, take me, but I don't want
Oh,
to.
that's great.
So, hold up. So, in the container, how much of my daily value of sodium would I get if I eat this ramen? Yeah, 66 1,520 milligrams of sodium. So if I'm hungry, right? If I eat 2 packets, what percent of my daily sodium am I at now?
3,040.
Well, percent. If we think percent,
I think 100.
120 plus another 6 and 6, 132. And that's only the ramen noodles. Do you think I only ate ramen noodles that day? No. I probably ate some other stuff, and everything has a little bit of sodium in it. So, like, if we look here, let's say I had this bag of chips. So, Doritos, right? Delicious. Check out the sodium on my, oh man, another 8%. Every bag of these I eat is another 8%. Look at, like, my fat that I'm supposed to have today. One bag of Doritos is 10% of all of the fat I'm supposed to eat today. That's not so great. Like, that's not awesome. But there are things on your labels that you can look at that are good. So let's say that we look at a label. Where am I trying to go? And we get told that 4 grams is 16% of the fiber you're supposed to have. On your paper, right here, what's fiber do for you? Makes you poop. Yeah, guys, everyone poops. And if you don't poop, maybe you should eat some more fiber. So 4 grams, we're going to label, is 16%. And if we set up, now you could do this on that other paper, but I like having clean workspace. If I set up that 4 grams is 16%, could I figure out how much 1 gram would be worth? How could I go from 4 to 1? Divide by 4. So we divide by 4. So what percent is 1 gram? So 1 gram would be 4. You know how much fiber ramen has?
How much?
Like, fiber's good for you. You guys are weird about, like, poop because you're kids and you're just weird about poop. But look at how much fiber is in my ramen. Like, none. There's, like, a little bit, but not, like, a worthwhile amount. Right? If you want to be an informed consumer and be aware of what you're putting in your body, start looking at your food labels. Your choices now are going to impact, like, you years from now. So, like, I don't know where my heart condition came from. It was probably just genetic, like, passed down to me. But thinking back to childhood and, like, oh, I'm going to go lifeguard. I'm going to take a can of Monster. I'm going to eat a bag of Doritos. Like, made some not so great choices that I'm like, man, could I have not had all this heart stuff? I don't know. It was probably genetic, but who knows? Soul? By the way, it's time to pack up, but go ahead. Oh, nice. Yeah. Yeah, that's different than, like, the package. Like, yeah, because if you go to, like, an actual restaurant and get ramen, that's different, right? That's not this. Guys, what the heck? Did the cushion just come off? Bro, quit destroying my classroom.